Welcome back to another part of this F1 25 My Team Career Mode. This is part number 44 today for the Brazilian Grand Prix in Season 3. Last time out was a very chaotic first race at Baku in the series. Two late red flags really changed that entire race. And in the end of it, it's actually a pretty happy, return to Baku after some time on the channel. You know, it was the first time we did Baku on F1 25, and it went pretty darn well for us. You know, it was back-to-back quite surprising podiums for our two drivers. You know, Tramnit in Italy, Behrman in Baku, both from the back of the grid. And now we come to the Brazilian Grand Prix with the sprint race, of course, as well as the full Grand Prix. And it is very much now crunch time in the season. 4 races to go, and you gotta say, we've still got a pretty healthy hold over the championship. In the drivers with Tim Tramnit, and in the constructors, the R&D chart has looked like this going into Baku. Audi, one of the biggest improvements there, although they're still yet to score a point in the season. Obviously, Aston Martin and Williams have made... Obviously, Aston Martin have made gains, and the teams around us, you know, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, already were a little bit ahead of us in the case of just Merc, and then Ferrari and Red Bull, McLaren fully ahead of us, but that hasn't stopped us getting 2 back-to-back podiums, which, to be fair, I think there's a little bit of the rub of the green, but at the same time, especially for Italy, I think we just finessed that completely, and just we were on our toes the entire time. And for Baku, the red flags helped us out, but we had to be really on it on the restart. So I think we've made the most of the opportunities that have fallen our way, and we kind of have to do that, because I think any opportunity for these AI teams around us, if they could, you know, outscore us, they will if they get the opportunity, but we have tried to minimize that as best we can, and we're growing very nicely as a team with fan rating. We're nearly at fan rating 7, and that is getting us some new sponsors ready for this episode as well. 2 new sponsors, actually. The first time I think we've actually got 2 new secondary sponsors in one go from one race to the other, so that'll be a nice addition onto the car. And then what else is I guess a sign of progress is this: the Phase 4 engineering department. Now, it doesn't actually mean that much for us, because we were playing this game in series before they fixed the Phase 4 upgrades. So technically, you know, if this was a new save we were starting, Phase 4 would mean something. Phase 4 would be our final upgrades on the car, but we already had those upgrades on the car, because at the start of the game, Phase 4 was a bit broken, which in hindsight, if you think about it, would have put us into a really frustrating position. Up until now, we wouldn't have had those final upgrades, which means this 3rd season probably wouldn't have been a championship contending season if it wasn't for Phase 4 actually being broken at the start of the game. Just food for thought, something to think about. So in a weird way, you know, the reason why we're able to try and go for a championship in this 3rd season is because of those upgrades. Otherwise, this might have taken a 4th season to get to a championship contention, and there's no guarantee of that depending on the R&D regulation changes, because obviously every other team around us is maxing out, and that now includes Williams and Aston. Apparently Aston are now ahead of us by a tiny margin, pretty much on level pegging with us, and Williams as well. So all of a sudden, we're closer to the bottom than we are to the top in terms of the list, in terms of actual the graph. Obviously, we've still got a lot of performance on the teams like Audi, BMW, Renault, and even Haas, but you know what I mean. Basically, it's a very different perspective on the season now compared to, you know, this same team winning 5 races in a row at the start of the year. It really has been a very 2009-esque Brawn GP sort of season for us. And we come to Sao Paulo, obviously, now, and we're going to be driving as Tim Tramnit, the championship protagonist of ours, leading the way. Hopefully, we can, again, limit the damage and just keep it going and keep ourselves ticking along until we maybe can confirm ourselves as the world champion.
Atmospheric tracks don't come much better than this. We're in Brazil for qualifying. Let's get some laps at the limit.
Two different races, so this is going to be two different opportunities for, well, Albon in particular, the nearest man to Tramness in the championship, and the teams trying to chase us down, the constructors, to have a go. But we've been doing a great job so far. It's still keeping everyone at an arm's length, but this is a very different circuit to Italy and Baku. Both of those had long back straights, were able to make overtakes. Sao Paulo, yes, it's one of the thoroughbred circuits, a fan favorite, but it can be a bit difficult to overtake at times. So going to be interesting to see if we maybe don't qualify as well as we want. I'm not saying a back of the grid this time. You know, now we've got a new set of engine components for both Tramnitz and Behrman, so we're fine for engine components. But this is what I'm on about. We don't necessarily have the out-and-out pace anymore. And I think we would have been qualifying around here in Italy if we did qualify. And the same in Baku. You saw, what was it, Tramnitz's AI didn't qualify that particularly mad high in Baku, when he went on to do quali. So, this is where the pace of the car is, especially now with Williams and Aston level pegging with us on the R&D chart. We're down in 10th and 11th. Behrman out-qualifies us narrowly, but yeah, I mean, the sprint race is the top 8 points, so we're going to have to try and make at least a couple of overtakes to get something in this sprint. But this is really just a dress rehearsal then for the full Grand Prix, and I'm hoping we won't be wincing too much by the end of the sprint at maybe our prospects in the full race as we go towards now the sprint in Sao Paulo. 12 laps ahead of us as we go to lights out, and we're underway under the dark shadow on the main straight, left to right. Don't know where to go. Stroll's coming in very hot in the McLaren. We're right now trying to just survive the Senna S, and Stroll is going to be persistent in this overtake, so he might be down to 12th place. Behrman has gone forwards at least rather than backwards compared to me. He's up to P9, but we now find our footing, get down the inside of Paul Aaron and get into 10th place. But from here, where can we go? And looks like the Williams of Tsunoda is being very, very feisty, nipping at the heels of Lando Norris as we send one late on down the inside of Ollie Behrman, kind of almost doing the exact same as Albon, who also went down the inside of Tsunoda. So Tsunoda's gone from attacking the Mercedes to defending the Ferrari, I think, and we're going to catch Ocon completely unawares and do Behrman a favour by taking him wide and letting Behrman through. So just trying to be a good teammate there whilst we get through this early stage of the race where we've got maybe a little bit of pace on the opening lap before maybe the tyre wear starts to kick in. The actual race pace then will kick in later, it always seems, in on F1 25. So we now try and nearly make a 2-for-1 pass there as we went nearly down the inside of Tsunoda and Albon, both of them almost working together to shut the door and box us in. Tsunoda on the right, Albon on the left. Can we go all the way to the inside to get 2 overtakes? Still trying to get it done, and we are maybe successful. We are down the hill. Tsunoda gives way and we're up to P6. It's been a real fantastic first 2 laps, but eventually I'll run out of battery and we're now forced into a phase of getting re-overtaken, and Albon goes very aggressive to the inside and forces me into a lockup there as we were just preparing. Tsunoda, he passes fine, but then Albon sticks his nose in, catches us unawares and forces us into a mistake, and we're now down to P8 as we're starting to lose some of that opening lap progress, as it's Oscar Piastri who leads the way from Leclerc, the 2 Mercedes ahead of Max Verstappen.
Seems to be an issue with our ERS.
Oh dear, no. Oh no. Well, I spoke about battery problems in terms of not having enough. Well, now we don't have any.
The ERS is offline. We're currently looking into the problem.
So that's been the first time in a long while where we've had a total failure of ERS. It's red. It's all in red. Momentarily, it's now magically come back straight away after like half a section. I was kind of worried that was going to be for a while there.
The guys have fixed the problem with the ERS. It's now available.
Okay, so ERS might be back online, but the timing of that's still unfortunate enough where Ocon's powered through and I've let Behrman by in terms of not fighting that too much, because if Behrman can stick on the back of Ocon, that's going to be better for us as a team. But yeah, so actually, to be fair, even though that ERS fault only lasted momentarily, it actually did still do enough damage because it basically didn't allow me to save any battery, because although I couldn't deploy any, I also couldn't save any because it was all just locked off in red. Ahead of us, Behrman's actually overtaken Ocon, so vindication there for letting him by. But lap 7, he's now being attacked again, and you saw momentarily there the tyre wear is already creeping into the yellow region on the heads-up display. Behrman on the right, it almost looks like he gives way there. He really stepped out of it, almost like he was repaying the favour. I mean, I know there's no mechanics like that with the AI teammates on the F1 game, but it's nice to dream a little bit that that's what was happening as Albon faces an engine failure. The nearest man to us in the championship, to Tramnitz in the championship. His sprint race, at least, is going up in smokes, but that may just affect his full Grand Prix with penalties needing to be taken. Oh, it's an absolute disaster. Surely that's a big nail in the coffin for any hopes of Ferrari and for Albon to do any sort of miracle work of their own at the end of the season to catch us up, to catch Tramnitz up. That's really going to put them on the back foot there. That's actually huge. Doesn't seem like it in just a little old sprint race like this, but that is massive for the championship fight, and that really eases a lot of any of the pressure. There wasn't that much pressure, but any pressure that there was has now been alleviated because of that engine failure, as Charles Leclerc is going to win the sprint race, having made a late move on Oscar Piastri there. Good stuff for the McLaren driver, who's going from strength to strength then, from winning the last full race to now the very next race, a sprint here in Sao Paulo. Can he continue the good vibes into the full Grand Prix and try and salvage what has been a pretty torrid time for himself at McLaren, as he pulls himself up into P9 with 81 points now, only 4 points off Carlos Sainz, and maybe a chance to start mixing it up with some of the teams he should have been fighting all season long. But us, for Tramnitz, the points gap is looking pretty amazing. 57 points there in the Constructors. Drivers' Championship points was 48. I don't know what the maths is quite, but this could, by the end of this race, depending on how Sao Paulo goes here coming up, we could put ourselves into a position where maybe mathematically a championship clinch is possible in the next race at Las Vegas. I don't know, let's not jinx it. Let's see how this goes, as it's slightly overcast conditions in the full qualifying here in Sao Paulo. And it's going to end up being not the best of laps from me on that first flying lap, and by the time we start our second, it's actually starting to rain. You can see some droplets of rain streaking off the halo and around the chassis area, but we're purple in the first sector because that's how awful our first flying lap is. I don't know what I was actually doing. I must have fallen asleep at the wheel, it seems like. Maybe just not locked in and dialed into the task at hand. Well, the second lap has woken me up. We're 1.3 seconds up despite the wet weather arriving now here of the track, but we're P5 only, Behrman P3, so it looks like our teammate is going to out-qualify us again. But this is a very different story to the sprint quali. P3 and 5 it finishes because everyone else didn't really get a better second lap, because most of them decide to go either too late or didn't have the tyres, or they just saw the rain and didn't bother. So it's going to be Carlos Sainz on pole position for Mercedes, Leclerc on the front row for the full Grand Prix, Williams with a very strong 6-7 ahead of the likes of the Red Bulls, one Ferrari of Albon down in P12 following that engine failure in the sprint. So this is a real turn for the books and could turn into a really solid race for us. Let's go to the grid.
Formula One returns to Interlagos once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his third championship here in 2012, and in 2016, Max Verstappen treated us all to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. It's Carlos Sainz in pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Ocon, Tramnitz, Paul Aaron and Tsunoda, Piastri, Behrman, Verstappen and Lando Norris. Lawson, Colapinto, Andrea Kimi, Antonelli and Gasly, Pepe Marti, Hulkenberg, Lance Stroll and Isaac Hadjar, Maloney, Bortoletto, Albon and Jack Doohan. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. We welcome to the commentary box Anthony Davidson. I'm Alex Jakes. We're both looking forward to a really intriguing race today. Well, it's an excellent sprint yesterday, but we're back to the usual format now. How do they continue what they started?
Absolutely. You know, they're at one with their car. You could see that in the sprint. That's why they were successful there. And you've got to carry that through into this race today. And in a way, we've had a snapshot as well of what this driver's capable of.
So Alexander Albon at the back of the grid. Like I said, that engine failure could prove very costly for this full Grand Prix, with engine penalties needing to be taken to get to the end of the season now. So this is now turned, surprisingly, into a massive open goal of a chance to really lock in the advantage we've got and basically try and set up the next race, Las Vegas, as a race where we could clinch the title for Tim Tramnitz. The overall race pace, though, in the sprint's got to be a little bit concerning, so I don't know whether we'll be able to hold this sort of position of fourth place. And actually, I've only just noticed Behrman's not actually in his third place here, so he also took some penalties, even after what we did in Baku, surprisingly, as we go to 5 red lights to the Brazilian Grand Prix, and we are underway. Leclerc with a very good getaway on the inside for turn 1. The McLaren might just take the lead and run off into the sunset here as we're down the inside of the only Ferrari in the top end. Ocon, we've got him. We're up to 3rd place now, and yeah, Behrman is actually a couple of cars back, as it looks like he took some sort of 5-place penalty, as we now are all of a sudden side by side with Leclerc and Sainz on the outside of a 3-car battle for the lead of the race, and we've just got the lead as we fend off Leclerc. Sainz backed out of it, and somehow, I really don't know how, we're in 1st place of this Grand Prix. It's amazing sometimes on this game. You maybe noticed it yourselves. You can really find so much performance in the opening laps, and then the AI overall race pace, the tyre wear really kicks in, really starts to pummel you. So it's always, you know, in the first few laps, try and make the most of it, I would say, if you're looking for any kind of top tips, as we're making the most of this, of being in first and swapping positions with Leclerc. But at some point, you feel like this pressure is going to boil over, because Leclerc and Sainz now are both coming back at us, but Leclerc's been there with us swapping for the first 4 laps. But we're doing well, you know, using the battery at certain areas to keep ahead. But then this was basically a case of accepting our fate there. Didn't use any battery because it was very clear Leclerc and Sainz were going to come bulldozing through. Ocon is sneaking in, and the Williams on the minimap, you can see, aren't too far off there. Aaron leading Tsunoda, very interestingly. Here's Sainz on the outside now, side by side through this center S. Leclerc keeps his foot in, and that's going to slow them both up. And can we now make another second double overtake as we thread the needle for one of the most satisfying in the middle double overtakes ever? That was unbelievably satisfying as the gap simply opened up. That would have been Ayrton Senna's dream there. The gap opened up for us, and we went for it. And now in 2nd place, fending off Ocon, because Sainz has actually dropped off a little and the Ferrari has come into play, but we've just squeezed him out to the point where now Ocon and Sainz are having a fight with each other, and that may just give us the breathing room we're looking for to try and pull away with Leclerc and kind of almost use him as a bit of a horse to our carriage and pull us along with DRS. And that's what's happening on lap 9. You can see the gap is now 1.9, as on purpose I'm not actually overtaking Leclerc. Even if I could, I'm just sticking with him to save battery, be in the DRS, and just letting Ocon fight the cars behind. And that's right now going to be the 2 Williams on lap 10, because despite his opening heroics, Sainz and Mercedes have really fallen off in this race, and Sainz is down to P6. So whether that's just tyre wear or what, or Sainz just unlucky at this phase of the race, but the two Williams have come knocking, Aaron's through, and now Tsunoda might come through. So now Williams are the next best car trying to chase after the top two of ourselves and Leclerc. Meanwhile, by the way, Behrman, he's had a little bit of a quiet first part of this race, gone down to P9 behind the two Red Bulls, but not, dropping any further at the moment, into the hands of the two Aston Martin Hondas who are P11 and 12. So let's see how this progresses. Lap 11, he's now defending Lando Norris. So I don't know, it may be the writing's on the wall for where the actual true race pace is, and I am just benefiting massively from this DRS tow from Leclerc. It's actually maybe a big question of where we would be in this race if we weren't in this situation, getting DRS from Leclerc, as the tyre wear now is kicking in on lap 13. Orange icon on the bottom right, you can see of the heads-up display, and technically we did maybe consider a two-stop in this race, and that would have been pitting lap 9, but I've carried on because I just want to basically try and match Leclerc and try and go as long as he can. But now, on lap 14, we're getting to 74% tyre wear on the bottom right. I was a little bit too nervous to carry on any further, getting PTSD from Silverstone, from where else did we just get the puncher? Italy as well, the rear tyre being over 75%. Obviously we just got so unlucky with the RNG puncher in Italy, and it blew up. So this time, didn't want to take my chances. We did really well because the two-stop would have had us pitting on lap 9. We went to basically lap 15 we're now coming out on. I think that's a really good extension. And now we're hopefully converting this strategy into a one-stop, which is, I think, what most of the teams around us are doing. Definitely seems like that's what Leclerc is going to do, what the Ferrari is going to do. Williams, not too sure, because Aaron and Tsunoda pit a lot earlier, and you can see they've actually come out ahead of us, Aaron there, because of the undercut, but I think they're on a two-stop because they pit so early. So I think it was quite crucial for us to swap over to a 1, because I just don't see us having the overwhelming pace to repass and catch back up on the two-stop. It's not like the same situation as it was in that previous race we had with Tramnitz on the two-stop. In Spa, wasn't it? I just don't think it's that same sort of situation. I don't think we have the same sort of pace as we did in Spa around here, because now we've got Williams and Aston, on us, on par with us in the R&D chart. Just clearly McLaren now are a lot better. Leclerc's arrived, but we're cutting through these guys like a hot knife through butter. Easy overtakes on all these slower cars and getting into some clean air now to close up to Stroll. More pit stops coming now. Lap 16 on the left-hand side, I believe, and that's going to include Leclerc, Ocon in the Ferrari, Behrman as well. So we have jumped Leclerc with that earlier pit stop. Now, it was about 3 laps earlier than Leclerc. That's going to come back to bite us in terms of tyre wear at the end of the race. So Leclerc's got a 4.5 second gap as we overtake his teammate up into P5. Tsunoda is the car ahead with a purple lap time right now, Tsunoda. He takes the lead of the race, but guaranteed he is pitting again. Same for Aaron. Especially for Tsunoda, because he's on mediums. Aaron's on hard, so maybe he could go longer, but I doubt he will. And Leclerc is now up to P3, so you can see Williams don't have the pace to make a two-stop work for them to get into the top 5. I doubt they'll be in the top 5. They'll fall behind, even like the likes of Piastri and Sainz, because of that second pit stop. They just don't have that overwhelming pace which you need to make it work. And so that's why I'm glad we've converted effectively to the 1. But we do have a lot of work ahead of us, because we've got Ocon and Leclerc knocking on the door. Forget Tsunoda right now. We're basically a net race lead, but Ocon's powered past, and Leclerc is going to come very, very quickly, and he's actually spooked us off the road a little bit and then been very, very aggressive through the second bit of the CRS. I was a bit taken aback there. That was very aggressive from Leclerc to kind of slam the door shut on that apex. We were kind of almost waving him by fluffing a little bit at turn 1. But now, this is an all too familiar feeling in sight to what happened in the sprint race, where we're just waving these guys past even with deploying full battery, Sainz is pulling alongside us. He's going to have the DRS, and you know, because we've also pit 3 laps earlier, these guys just have that little bit more extra tyre grip out the corners, you know, up that hill to make that run on us on the main straight. So we're now all of a sudden gone from P1 to P5 in the race, but Behrman's P6. He's actually done very well, so he's somehow overtaken Verstappen in the pit stop phases, stayed ahead of Norris, and so that's actually a really good development for Behrman. And for us then, I mean, we shouldn't be too disheartened. This is maybe where the car is, 5-6 for us as we watch ahead. Leclerc versus Sainz. Piastri's already made overtakes and he's cut through into P2. So the Red Bull, he was actually, you know, where Verstappen was in the first stint. He was with Verstappen, you know, looking to close up. But now Piastri's somehow broken into the top 4 fight and then gone on to get into 2nd place, and now might just go chasing after the lead of Esteban Ocon, as you can see on the minimap, as ahead of us, lock-up from Leclerc, who is feeling the pressure from Sainz now, and we are closing back up to these guys. So maybe now they're facing a little bit of tyre wear. They're fighting each other also quite hard, so that's kind of inviting us back in. And so all of a sudden there, as Leclerc is harvesting, you can see with the red light flashing, that means he's harvesting energy. We're going to have a chance to overtake, and we're going to repay the favour and be very aggressive with him on the exit of the center S there, and just cut across, slam the door shut, and that was for what he did earlier to us. As now we focus back on Piastri, who powers through into 1st place. He was down in like, what, 8th or 9th in the first stint, and he has found some mega pace in this race, Oscar Piastri, to lead the way now from Esteban Ocon. Sainz in 3rd, might be able to try and chase back after him. Ocon comes back at Piastri, the two of them side by side. The Ferrari fantastically gets the lead back, to be fair, so we've got a real fight on our hands for the race win. And meanwhile behind, Behrman is fighting Verstappen actively, and they've been swapping lap after lap. Behrman back ahead for P6. Behind them, Tsunoda just looking to overtake Albon for P9. So Albon from the back of the grid has recovered to points, but you can see where Williams are now with that 2-stop. I mean, Aaron's DNF'd. Tsunoda nowhere in P9. So just showing you the 2-stop really wouldn't have worked for us, because I don't think we had that much more pace than Williams. And in reality, it's just because of their strategy that they're down the order. They would have been better off trying the 1-stop, as Ocon continues to try and maintain 1st place. Is we now, well, we gave Leclerc a little bit of a squeeze, but we're not finding him too much, because now my tyres are really, really shot, and it's a case of I need to nurse these tyres to the end, because I'm actually concerned about getting a puncture. Those 2 punches we've had in the season so far now, they've given me PTSD about puncture chances in F1 25. It seems way more than previous years there's a chance of a puncture in the higher tyre wear region, so I'm just not taking any chances. I'm going to take it easy as we're here on lap 34 now. Piastri continuing to try and attack Ocon, but now all of a sudden Carlos Sainz, hang on a minute, where have you come from? Sainz, this was the man who fell off a cliff in stint 1 and went from, you know, fighting for 1st place down to P6. Well, now he's come back, and on the last lap of the Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz has just overtaken Ocon. What's just happened? I think Ocon and Piastri are fighting so much consistently for these last couple of laps. It allowed Sainz to protect his hards, unlike what he did in the first stint with his mediums, and he's come through as the big winner. On the last lap, he's taken the lead, and on the last lap, Behrman is going to try and retake P6 from Verstappen. Norris close behind. Behrman just can't quite do it. I think Verstappen might just have that P6 then. Behrman's going to have to settle for P7. We're settling for P5, and if you look at it, actually, Verstappen's gaining on us because we're going so slow protecting these tyres to make sure we don't get a puncture. But the man of the hour is there in P1, Carlos Sainz. I think I basically wrote him off in the first stint that he fell away, but he's come out of nowhere on the last lap to take this victory. And is that his first victory for Mercedes this season? I think it might be. Carlos Sainz across the line wins it here in Sao Paulo. A very surprising winner. We're going to come home in a pretty damn strong P5 in the context of Albon only came, I think, P9, wasn't it? So we've had a very, very solid race in terms of the actual championship fight, the nearest man to us in the standings. Albon got driver of the day, but it won't matter. I think the damage has been done, and we've set up a great Las Vegas race.
Carlos Sainz takes the checkered flag.
I mean, it looked like they were in a different category at points during the race, led every lap. I mean, what more can we say?
Overall, you know, let me know what you guys think. I actually think Mercedes have been the most impressive team outside of us this season, and they've actually looked probably the better one. I'm kind of baffled in a way that Ferrari and Albon are second place, and that Ferrari are still the nearest team to us in the standings, because I feel like Mercedes have impressed me more this season with Lando's 2 back-to-back wins, the way Sainz has just won that race. They've actually, you know, they've just must have been that inconsistent this season. And when they have been great, they've been really great with a win like this. But yeah, look at those standings, look at those points gaps. I think we've done really well. And I think into Las Vegas, there is a chance we could clinch the driver's title with Tim Tramnett. You're going to have to wait till then, guys. If you have enjoyed this one, though, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around to, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.